Hello, my friends, my family, my esteemed colleagues. Since more and more questions about salt are coming in, I did write articles about it, but people do not like read too much, don't like investigate, they like everything on a silver platter. So here we go about salt. We all know that we are being lied about everything. And one of the major things that creates diseases in our body is toxic blood. And blood can be easily detoxified by the mechanism of our robot, of our body, because it is actually 3 levels of blood cleansing. First level being through kidneys, which is the regular pollution. Then if the pollution goes up higher, usually triggered by a release of toxins from the cells, then mucosal tissue is being involved, and then after that, if it's even higher toxicity, then the skin does the cleansing. All these organs have glomerulus in which those are the chambers, the reactors in which are being used to cleanse the blood. Now, none of them will work if plasma is not available. Why not? Because we are low on water. Body cannot spare water that it needs for survival. And usually people who are sickly with chronic diseases, their problem is dehydration, chronic dehydration. And we cannot hold the water if we don't have minerals, salt. And this is why we are being fooled in thinking that if we exaggerate with salt, then we are going to super pressurize our body, and this is why we get high blood pressure, and this is why our kidneys are failing. And the way to control blood pressure, keep salt in low levels. And as soon as you have blood pressure, the first thing is no salt, no salt. If because of this you destroy your blood vessels, which also makes kidney inefficient, because kidney cleanses through blood vessels. If they are screwed up, then of course the kidney cannot cleanse. And then we are being instructed to say absolutely no salt. And as the kidney cannot barely produce any urine because there is no water, then nothing else, no water. Then we are being instructed to completely forbid water intake. I mean, how crazy can we get? And salt is being used as a weapon against us, the misinformation about salt. And to prove their point, artificial salt is created with this baloney iodine added to it as essential stuff. This is all lies. And we are poisoning ourselves. Now, when we start taking the real salt, the salt that we find in the nature, especially the freshly harvested sea salt, that is coming on the market under the name Celtic or Celtic sea salt, or in different countries they have also their own names for it. But also there is manipulation going on. Some companies are mixing the sea salt with the rock salt, the mine salt, because it's cheaper. So it's all kind of monkey business going on. It's good to find a true sea salt. Now, why true sea salt and why not rock salt, which is the salt that we find in a ground? And why not this highly prized Himalayan salt? Because, again, now we go and use our brain. Sea salt, what is this salt that we find in the caverns, that we find in Himalayas? Well, we know once upon a time this was all submerged under the sea level. And then we say, well, we are polluters. We have polluted our sea. Look about the microplastics. Look about the radiation. You cannot have any of the salt. Well, this is also because we are being lied about historic events. And we are trying because of religious reasons, and not only religious, because it's all working together to make a picture of certain kind that is going to be fed in our brain to make us really boxed into opinion that humans have been on this planet 4,000 years. Well, this is ridiculous. When we know that we find the buildings or pyramids that have to be at least 30,000 years old, if not more. The Sphinx that we have in Giza, that is over 30,000 years old. They say, no, maybe 15,000, but even if it's 13,000, it's way more than religion allows us to believe that humanity existed. Okay, and somebody built that. So we have to start really thinking. And if this was submerged, and we say million years ago, and then it was elevated, or planet has shifted the mass, and we know now, if you think, just use the brain, that every 12,000 years we are going through reprogramming, we call evolution, and actually the land masses change. There comes shift of the planet's orbit, planet's position, and we get change of North Pole. Now pole is wiggling and until it settles where it's going to be, but it's going to be different than it used to be before. Now this all, we can go in discussion separately, but this is about salt. So let's say 2,000 or 5,000 years ago, it's enough. 5,000 years ago, there is no more sea where it was before. Now what happens with the salt? Water evaporates or drains out, and now you have a salt there. Now, if salt is kept in some cavern, it means that water could not escape and water evaporated. But through earthquakes and things are shifting, cracks happen and water starts seeping out. Again, salt somehow has stayed there without escaping, and it has solidified, became rock salt. And what happens? It's sitting there for thousands of years. Now what happens with the salt, sea salt, if you have a freshly harvested sea salt and you leave it on the table, it will start absorbing your humidity and it turns into water droplet. It's not going to happen with table salt. You can forget about it. It's garbage. But the freshly harvested sea salt, this is going to happen. Why? Because there is a huge amount of magnesium in a freshly harvested sea salt. There is a lot of magnesium in the seawater. It keeps it alkaline. And now you have this salt that is full of magnesium, and magnesium starts trapping the moisture, and the salt starts sweating. So now, if overnight the salt turns into water, now you can imagine what happens in thousands of years. Basically, the salt loses almost all of the magnesium, and by turning into droplets of water, it's actually dissolving other minerals, which then end up in underground waters, then goes into rivers and goes back to the sea. The main thing is that longer the salt is out of the sea, the less magnesium and less of other minerals is going to have, but on top of it, it can gain some of the local contaminants. Another thing that is becoming clear and clear every day as we are awakening, that there were civilizations before not only before Sumerian civilization, which we thought it was first one, it is probably the first one in the last 12,000 year cycle, which is a half cycle of planet going around the Milky Way, and around our galaxy. Half cycle is masculine, half cycle is feminine. This is how energies work. We are energetic, we depend on energy. It's all energy activation. So what is happening is that before, like more than 13,000 years ago, again, humans, maybe we were not Homo sapiens, we were different type of humanoids, human beings, which we call them Lemurians, because it was Lemuria and Atlantis was in Lemuria. So what happens is that the civilization was very advanced and it destroyed itself. But before Lemuria, we go another 13,000 years ago. We know that there are civilization remnants of buildings in India, which are now under the water, which are older than that. Even on land in India, I forgot the name. I don't record things because I'm focusing on health. I'm not focusing on history. So maybe my mistake, but it's just too much to do for one person. So I'm focusing on one thing, but I am exposed to other truths as I'm solving the health problem. So there is evidence that there was a city, and it is mentioned in India through oration, through songs, which are the records of past, that there was a city, and then there was a big war going on, and war against Shiba and other things, extra flying objects, whatever. And what do we see in this remnants of this city? We see skeletons in awkward positions, like people died rapidly. And there is still nuclear activity. So there were nuclear wars thousands and thousands years ago. So assuming that because salt came from more than a couple thousand years ago, everything was pristine. This is a stupid assumption, okay? Because we are not polluting any more than we have been polluting before, and before, and before, and before. Okay? Our genetic record is billions of years of experiences. And we were messing up everywhere since the time that we were allowed to manifest. We start creating things that should not be created. Now it was probably one of the culminations, but before this culmination, there was Sodom and Gomorrah. Same culmination, destruction. Flood had to destroy later stuff. Okay, so we are going through this, and we are learning. We are trying to get out of this crappy manifestation that we have created, that I have explained in previous video. So, assuming that salt that was in a cave for a few thousands of years or more is cleaner than the salt that we pick up now, this is just assumption based on wrong premises of our not knowing what happened before. And actually, we have to rely on experiences of present-day people. So when I say that Himalayan salt is toxic, should not be used, well, I didn't just come up with this. I have heard it from someone that I trust. And the one that I trust was Marco Polo. And Marco Polo was from family of merchants, was doing trade, going through the Silk Road. And he went through Himalayas. And as he also was kind of historian. He loved to always note everything that he experienced. He wrote books about his travels. And since he was from island of Korčula, yes, he was working for Phoenicians. Because at one point they were in possession of the islands of which are now islands of Croatia. So actually he was Croat. And I was interested in reading about his voyages. So when he was passing through Himalaya, he noticed merchants, caravans stopping and trading with local people. And he was puzzled. What do these people need so badly that they would trade with the little they have to get what caravan has? And then he heard that the local people in Himalaya are buying sea salt. So he would start laughing and kicking the salt because it's all full of salt. And he says, why don't you eat this? And then people told him, if we eat this salt, we get sick. Now you don't get sick when you eat a little bit of the salt, but as a generation, you eat the salt, you get sick. So something is sick, something is toxic in this salt. Now analyses are showing us that there is a high concentration of lead. Lead by itself is not, we are being told of high toxicity, this is why we had to strip all this wall, all this paint from the wall. Well, lead is not that much more toxic than copper. And copper is essential metal in our body, same as zinc. Okay? Now copper is toxic, but not that badly. Of course, if you accumulate it, if you are overexposed to it, and if you don't allow your body to cleanse, this is the clue. If you don't allow your body to cleanse, why not? Because you deprive it of minerals. Then you get in trouble. So is microplastic going to be a problem? No, if you allow your body to cleanse. Number one, you don't have absorbers for plastics. So they are not, if it's any larger, then it can just freely go into with the water into the membrane of the cell, then it's not a problem. And if it's so small, it's not a problem for body to eliminate it as well. Body does not tolerate what it does not need. It will cleanse it if it can, if you provide it with a salt. So forget about the microplastics. It's the least of an issue. We are drinking from plastic bottles, we are eating from plastic Tupperware with plastic spoons, and now we are worried about a little baloney. Okay? Programming, yeah. Look what we show you. Don't look over there. Look what this is. You see this? We are being sprayed with aluminum and we are worrying about a little microplastic, that plastic is swimming in the water. Yeah, it's bad for the sea life that eats it and chokes on it. And for us, microplastic, not worth mentioning. But it has been proven that Himalayan salt actually is toxic. High lead concentration has boron, brom, and nuclear activity. Opa! Pristine salt. Of course, it is not going to be that noticeably toxic if you just use it as we are used to being told, just a little bit of salt, don't be spared with the salt. So it's much better than your toxic table salt. But it's no better than, and actually is worse than normal rock salt that you get from mines. There are multiple. Here in Peru there are mines, actually is pink as well, some of it. But every salt that is rock salt, that is sedimented salt, it is very low on magnesium and is washed out because it sweats, and then it returns slowly into the sea. So the salt in no way can be close to what is freshly harvested sea salt. And this is why this salt is needed for cleansing. It does the best job and supplies you with 80 different minerals. You don't have this in any other salt. and definitely not in Himalayan, unless they consider radioactive isotopes as a positive mineral. So this is where the truth is. You don't have to be any expert. You just have to rationally think. And I gave you enough premises that you can use as a base of your thinking. There is, some people want facts. Show me studies. Show me this, show me that. I don't trust any study. I don't trust any information because it's all manipulated. So you don't know whom to trust. So trust what you see. And okay, I didn't see the people in Himalayas, but I have heard report of Marco Polo, and then I have heard also of some tests being done on the salt. And to me, word of Marco Polo is fine. He had no reason why to tell us that Himalayan salt was toxic. But there is plenty of reason for our supplement pushers to claim that Himalayan salt is extremely healthy, and they'll give you all these baloney reasons of purity of a planet when the salt was actually liberated from the clutches of the sea. And this is all half knowledge, and I always mention that half knowledge is worse than no knowledge at all, because you start making up things. And all scientists, what we call scientists, are making up things because they never think to find the truth. They hear little information, they see something happening, they connect one with the other, and then make up the rest. And this is called study. So forget about the studies, forget about diplomas, and forget about what I say. Use information that is provided, and then calmly sit down and think about it. And if you find the flaws, tell me and we'll discuss. I'm also learning. I'm like anybody else. I'm no special, no particular. I'm just thinking, processing, and every time I write an article, every time I talk, by mentioning things and by putting things together to present them, new opening start showing up, where I actually either see where I have to investigate more, or I see new information coming up that clicks with what I'm saying, and I just project it. This is what it's all about. So, salt, don't be afraid of it. And of course, when you start with protocol, since your body is dehydrated, and because of this, you also have low levels of blood, and your blood is thick. So when you start drinking plasma, you are raising right away water with minerals, so you are maintaining the electroconductivity, which is important, and you are not going to be throwing out water unless it's too much salt, so you throw a lot of salt out with some water, but you always keep plasma levels keep increasing, and when they high enough, bingo, cleansing starts. And depending on how toxic you are, you have the symptoms of flu. Okay, that's what flu is. It can be triggered in other ways through drop of voltage, which I have explained as well. But as far as salt goes, with the self-healers protocol, this is how you start your cleansing without any shock. You just optimize your plasma levels in the body. Now your organs don't have to save water, and they start cleansing. And if you are toxic, the whole hell breaks loose. Thank you for listening. Love you all. Till next time.